Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining the Behind Company Live podcast. Today we have Shawn Hewat, CEO and co-founder of Wavy, a platform for easy, breezy team building events. Shawn, I'm so excited to chat with you. Not only, your founder story, but also your expertise into kind of how companies are shifting culture, understanding their not only their workforce a bit more and kind of setting up expectations around not only alignment over mission and vision, but keeping a cohesive, kind of productive team is a challenge now for a lot of founders and even founders from small companies to large companies. It's increasingly becoming more and more important, not only to retain people, but offer a really amazing experience for other talent that they want to attract. But before we get into all that with Wavy, what were you doing before you started the company?
Thanks for having me. So before I started Wavy, I was working in the tech space. My background is in marketing, partnerships, sales, and outside of my day job, I was also always on social committees, helping to plan team events and get people together. I think a lot of folks that work in marketing, especially women that work in marketing, end up doing that on the side of their desks. So I was kind of your go-to culture pal. So working in marketing, working with some really great founders in the Canadian tech space and learning a lot from them. I always wanted to start something, and Wavy really started out as a passion project rooted in experiences. We actually started with a B2C solution, helping people find local experiences, activities, and events based on their interests, their group dynamics, their budget, their location. We curated everything from partners or local experts. We launched that in fall 2019 and then started getting organic requests for corporate events and really started to explore the company culture space and felt that a lot of it was pretty old school and pretty kitchen and that there was some room for something new. So moved from the world of digital marketing and growth marketing to becoming a first-time founder and started the business with two other founders. And it's been the journey of a lifetime so far. I've learned so much since starting.
Yeah, it's incredible to think about, especially just focusing. You gain all the traction in 2019, the pandemic hits, and even more so, it's that much more critical for companies to stay connected to their employees and keep them re-engaged and honestly defeat a lot of the fatigue that people were facing. It's like, we have all this time we spend on work, and then outside of that, it's like, because we don't have commute and all these other things, you have to kind of create those auxiliary events. And I'm curious, what were some of the I guess, I don't want to say historic, but legacy things that people did before kind of the new interjection of Wavy? And what are some of the first things you started planning and started building in terms of the events with Wavy?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we started working on Wavy for Work at the end of 2019. At that point, thinking a lot about happy hours and kind of the traditional in-office team building events that teams do. And we thought there was opportunity to change that. A couple months working on that solution, COVID hit and things became more remote, distributed, and isolated than ever before. So we just saw the problem space we were in grow by tenfold over and thought there was even more opportunity in there. And I am a past marketer, so obviously have experience with webinars. And the worst thing I could imagine was doing a virtual event and having it feel like a forced webinar for the team to take part in. So I think COVID or not, the world of work is becoming more global, more distributed, more remote friendly anyways. And when you look at that, you can't do the same things that work in office remotely. And also a lot of things that people thought were working in office weren't that inclusive or equitable to begin with. I think companies defaulted to happy hours with alcohol focused events after work hours. So right away, you're excluding people who do not drink alcohol, would prefer not to be in that environment, parents who need to go pick up their kids, who all want to be a part of company culture and community that couldn't do so in the pre-remote work world. So it all, like right off the bat, it leveled the playing field a bit. But what we helped steer companies away from, I don't know if you did any virtual happy hours when COVID hit, but we were saying, okay, kill the happy hour. Like that's not going to work. It needs to be within work hours. It needs to be interactive. So you're actually chatting and getting to know your teammates better. If you can do something with your hands, like create something or take part in a really competitive game, like that's all the better. But most importantly, you want to walk away getting to know your colleagues better than you did before the call and doing
Yeah.
something not work related. So I can walk away and say, hey, I really got to know Julian better in that event,
Yeah.
whether we were playing it in it to win it tournament or doing a painting and planting workshop or like taking time to do something wellness focused, more the impacts that we're focused on.
Yeah. Well, it's so fascinating thinking about, you're so right, shifting the time kind of commitment to not being outside of work, but being within the framework of work. And I think
Yep.
some founders are hesitant to do it because they think about all work should be really productive and hyper productivity. And then after, then you're off and whatever. But what are the outcomes when you see companies actually investing in building culture, changing their paradigm of, okay, we build these events in-house during work hours, and we
Yep.
kind of have a focal point around getting to know people and using everything that you said as a good kind of benchmark for those types of activities. What are some of the key outcomes you've seen for companies who shift and start to reinvest in or invest in those types of activities and invest in something like Wavy?
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes you'll see founders or executives or leadership call team building bluff or consider it to be in that sort of realm.
Yeah.
Then you go, hey, what's your biggest problem you're tackling right now? And they go, oh, well, we've got a retention problem, or we just did layoffs and we really have no employee trust or connection. Like, that's my biggest problem.
Yeah.
And then you take a look going, okay, well, in the world of team building, group experiences that fit into social fun, wellness, and
Yeah.
learning, those are some of the best ways to facilitate and build trust. I
Yeah.
think the reason we see high-performing teams and high-performing companies with high-performing culture invest in team building
Yeah.
is because, A, if you get to know people as humans outside of your like monotonous day-to-day work, you'll trust each other more. You'll have
Yeah.
that more accountability. You'll be more tied to doing great work with them, collaborating well, saying, oh, I'm getting this done because I need to for Julian because
Yeah.
I trust him and he's my friend. That trust is super key for productivity and for
Yeah.
work to be done well. And then the second reason we see great leaders investing in this space is to have that overall sense of community and belonging at work.
Yeah.
Like, if you feel a sense of community and see that your team is intentionally investing in the space and wants you to get to know each other as people during work hours, you're going to have more trust in the brand, more trust in the company, feel more connected to vision, mission, and values. And odds are, if that exists and the trust exists, you'll stay longer, you'll tell other people about it, and you will build a greater place to work. So
Yeah.
that's what we really focus on. And something we wanted to do in launching this was make sure we could share feedback and results so that you can prove to leadership the impact these events are having on culture and employee engagement.
Yeah. How do you measure those?
So we measure things in a few ways. First off, when teams start working with Wavy, we do a culture kickoff survey. So this is just more holistically chatting with all employees, really quick, like pulse survey to understand like, how do you want to gather? Is that in person, online? Is it asynchronous, like shared activities on your own time? What time of day? What categories are you interested in? How meaningful is this to you? So that before you start, you can really look at things holistically and say, how can I build a program around this? Or what themes are most important for my team?
Yeah.
And then with each event, you can create a poll and have the team vote so that the employees are really bought into what you're doing as a team. It's not someone from leadership or someone from your HR team saying, oh, I like cocktail making, so I'm going to book that. It's the team deciding what they'd like to do together. And that typically leads to pretty great participation. And then post-event, there's pulse surveys. We gather some info through our platform on like RSVPs and participation, but you get written feedback and kind of scores on connection and culture impact too.
Yeah. And thinking about just doing so with a lot of the hybrid working cultures that we've seen now, being that some people are in office, others aren't. How is it by nature? I feel like it's difficult to connect those to groups of employees, right? Like by nature, it's a little bit more challenging. How are you able to do that? And what are some ways that companies are doing it successfully, being that they won't have some people in office just inherently, or that the people in office maybe need less kind of not oversight, but less activity in terms of communicating and engaging? How are they able to do that?
Yeah, the hybrid and then like globally distributed teams experience similar problems
Yeah.
in that it's hard to make everyone happy and it's hard to create programs that are truly inclusive for everyone. I think one of the legacy things in the space that makes this difficult is people assume we're one company, we're gonna have one holiday party, and I'm going to gauge whether that was successful or not based on how many people showed up to that event. And that's the
Right.
only way they're looking at success. Even if people dragged their feet there and weren't happy commuting in and didn't even want to go or didn't have a good time, it's not about that. It's about headcount.
Right.
So we have a lot of work to do in changing the conversation there. And like, if your team members feel forced to do something and they do it, does that even help? Like, is it meaningful connection or engagement, or is that more forced? So you encounter a lot of that in these hybrid situations. I think first and foremost, making everything voluntary. It's up to employees whether they want to take part in these sorts of experiences. You need to have leadership, most importantly, engaging in both. Online events, in-person events, you need leadership to be taking part actively in those. And if you're doing a hybrid event, I would strongly recommend having a theme. So we've got Earth Day coming up in April. So having a theme and then looking at it as more of an omni-channel initiative versus like one singular event. So what I mean by that is your company could celebrate Earth Day. Maybe sustainability is part of your core values. With that celebration, you could do something in person, something online, like we've got meal prep for rising food costs and more sustainable meal prep. You could do a kind of climate action workshop in person. And then you could do an Earth Day, like trash pickup that's asynchronous. It doesn't have to be done at the same time. And employees can opt into what works best for them, both for their availability, their learning and engagement style. And then you look at, well, how did Earth Day perform overall? Did it help employees feel more connected? Did we move the needle forward on our sustainability goals? Do people think this was positive for our culture? And it's not about that singular event and how many people took part, but how did the whole kind of campaign go? So that's how we've really been approaching hybrid. And then same with global teams, like different time zones, one theme. And that's what we've been seeing. But if rule of thumb is, if you're doing something hybrid, if you're doing something in person, you have to do something virtual as well. It has to be its own dedicated event. That's the most inclusive way to just start having good hybrid engagement.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's just great. I can see how it's great advice and how you can kind of incorporate both and keep this whole theme within a shared experience, which is, I feel like the biggest thing you want to maybe communicate is that shared experience, and so that everybody can have maybe a talking point, right? And it's not everyone, say, an extrovert in a classical sense, but others still want to connect and have those relationships. One thing that was interesting that you mentioned a lot of C-levels or managers or people kind of in more people to positions, thinking that culture building and all that is fluff. And how do you change the mentality of those individuals? How much education is needed, and how are you able to get past that opinion, that philosophy, to seeing the value of actually investing in culture? What are some challenges around that, and how are you able to overcome them?
Yes. I mean, companies with leaders that are truly people first perform better. There are so many data points around this, but even just looking at Glassdoor rating and reviews and actual like turnover, like voluntary turnover and retention is like, it speaks to itself. So if you've got leadership that truly believes in this and invests in it, your people will thank you for it. They'll stick around longer. They'll work harder. They'll have more accountability, and they'll be more tied to your organization overall. Unfortunately, there is a gap often between people and culture teams, people managers, and senior leadership. There's a lot of senior leadership in North America right now that's saying, we've got to go back to the old ways and get back to the office. And if we're not in office, then we're not productive and no work is happening. When that just simply isn't the case, there's like this notion to go back to the way things used to be, but that's not happening. There's a new reality of work, and good leaders understand that. And so some of the things we do to help our customers who do have this problem kind of prove to leadership is all in data and insights. Like I said, we do the culture kickoff survey when we launch. So it's showing leadership saying, hey, here's what your team's actually saying. 75% of your team doesn't want to get together in person, or they
Yeah.
want to just do wellness focused experiences and they
Yeah.
want to do it just with their department or have something company wide bi-monthly. So letting employees speak for themselves and showcasing the data is a really great way to go. And then
Yeah.
post event, having more measurement than the participants. Hey, this is how these events are actually impacting connection. And as we just saw, this type of event that you wanted to do actually had a much lower connection than this one that employees chose. So I think wherever you can back up with data and insights goes
Yeah.
a long way with leadership. And just unfortunately, just proving the ROI is what
Yeah.
is best. But that's why we build a lot of what we do, so that whoever is using Wavy can truly be that like champion, that culture champion
Yeah.
in their org.
Yeah. It's so critical to really implement things that are going to be measurable and structured. So to rather reinforce certain decisions that you make, but also understand where you need to invest in more, where honestly understand where you are at the start in the onset of these events and things like that. Tell us a little bit more about Wavy and not only the traction you've seen so far, how many customers have you been working with, but what's particularly exciting about this next year and this next journey that you're on?
Yeah. So we got into the kind of future of work space in 2020 as we evolved our initial concept to Wavy for Work. And since then, it's been great. We worked with close to 200 teams around the world for 200 companies around the world. Over 10,000 employees have felt more connected through Wavy experiences. So that's been really great so far. We started with virtual, but it's really evolved into something more. Wavy is now your culture hub for company-wide and department-based initiatives, whether that's something fun, something wellness, or something learning related. You can book experiences in our marketplace. You can grab free activities from our library, things that you and I could do for free and just run on our own. And you can publish your own events. And I think the magic of it, we build everything with our customers, not for them. So we're quite collaborative. And I think the magic of it is all of that, like really monotonous, really detailed event logistics and management work goes away when you use Wavy. Whether you're planning yourself or booking something in our marketplace, you just have to book. Invites, RSVP, order management, feedback, kind of closing the loop on that and sparking what you should do next. All of that is automated through our platform. So it actually saves organizers 5 to 10 hours per event in that work that nobody wants to do. What's next for us is continuing to grow in the team building space, not just virtually, but in person too, so that hybrid teams can book and enjoy hosted experiences wherever their people are. And from here, we're going to be expanding more into other things that can improve employee experience, like gifting, recognition, pulse surveys, and more, so that you can use all of that to plan what's next and get proactive with your engagement programs.
Whether it's externally or internally, what are some of the biggest challenges that Wavy faces today?
Yeah, I mean, we got our start in the tech space. All of our growth has been through community, through word of mouth, through referrals. So that inherently led to a pretty tech-focused customer base. And as you can imagine, based on the news today, tech companies, big and small, have been going through layoffs, budget cuts, budget delays, which in some cases, especially with leadership that doesn't kind of understand the investment in employee experience, that's directly impacting things like team building and employee engagement budgets. So that's been a challenge for us, being a small tech company ourselves, seeing our core customer segment really go through it over the past year and having to give them more free and budget-friendly resources, which has in turn impacted our own business. So we're starting to expand more beyond tech and diversifying our customer base, but I think that's been a big challenge for us navigating those waters. And then I think for any first time or early stage founder, the other biggest challenge is really figuring out what to prioritize on. There's so many different ways your business can grow and so many different ways you can take it. But how do you get laser focused and say, we want to achieve this in the next 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, and every day we're going to reprioritize to make sure we're stepping toward that goal. That's always a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And we've certainly experimented with a lot of different things and directions.
Yeah. If everything goes right, what's the long-term vision for Wavy?
Yeah, I think taking a step back and looking at the employee experience ecosystem, a lot of the solutions in the space, if you think of performance management or HRIS tools, are quite hierarchical and top down. An annual or biannual employee survey that's coming from the top that is supposed to be anonymous, but it's not really, and shares an ENPS score. I think a lot of that space is broken. And a lot of the challenges leadership faces, how do we attract the best talent and how do we retain and grow the best talent? Yet the system they're using to say, well, how well are employees doing? How happy are they? How's it going? Are pretty broken. So we're excited to disrupt that space even more, starting with team building today, but there's so much more to grow in the culture world. Our long-term vision for Wavy is building the culture OS for distributed global teams and doing it from a bottom-up perspective so you can get a real view and insight into how your team's doing and get proactive about steps you can take to continue that positive momentum or course correct if things are going badly. So definitely we'll be getting more into the people analytics space and not just stopping at the analytics, but giving you the solutions to improve or course correct too. I think that's where a lot of that space falls flat. Great. Our employee morale was low. We found that out at the end of the year. But what do you actually do to change that? So that's the world we're starting to play in now and excited to do it in a much bigger way as we continue to grow.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I love this next section. I call it my founder FAQs. I'm going to hit you with a rapid fire question. Then
do it.
We'll see where we get. So first question is thinking about HR as an industry and thinking about other companies that outside of technology that haven't necessarily used technology to track culture and influence culture and impact it. What are some other industries outside of tech that you have started to sell into or have started to focus more on company culture that traditionally hasn't been the reality because the tech has kind of popularized the idea, or I guess also validated the importance of culture building? What are some industries that are adopting that now that you see or that you would like to see?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and a couple industries that I'd love to help with this change, and I think there's been some interesting case studies or stories within them, are ones that are even pre-COVID quite distributed and quite remote. So if you think of accounting firms, consulting firms, insurance brokers, real estate, a lot of these workforces are inherently distributed. And I know if you think of accounting firms or law firms as an example, I think those two are known for having pretty harsh or pretty bad cultures. So I'm excited to make a bigger splash in that space and help to disrupt those who maybe haven't enjoyed the kind of tech culture that we've known to grow and love. And I think we can bring some of those influences into those places.
And what was being used before? Was there any culture tracking? Was it just kind of an HR system that showed your benefits and your 401ks or things like that? Like what was in those other industries? What was being used or what has been used to track, or has anything at all been really helpful?
I think you see a lot of legacy systems in there. So doing that annual employee engagement survey, doing the best place to work kind of survey. Perhaps you have like cocktail hours. Like we still see these industries kind of stuck in that legacy space. But they certainly have a lot of processes and are doing the kind of information collection. But in terms of action to actually help improve the employee experience, I think there's a long way to go, especially in the world of like team connection and employee well-being. But of course, the trade-off there, unlike being in the tech space, is more security, better benefits and perks packages that come with larger workplaces. So I think those are the things that employees enjoy there, but there's still a lot of work to do when it comes to culture.
Yeah. And more personally, as a founder, what's something that you're particularly good at now that, earlier on, say you weren't so good at it, or that was something that you continuously improved on?
Oh my goodness. It's hard because I'm such a generalist in my role, but I think every year when I look back at myself this day last year, I'm amazed at how little I knew the year before. So the speed of learning and development has just been wild. In the 4 years building Wavy so far, I feel like I've gotten 12 years experience.
Yeah.
So It's hard to nail down one thing, but I think I've gotten a lot better at the data and reporting side of things.
Yeah.
Not just going based off a feeling or based off a hunch or what we're excited about in that moment, but actually taking a look at the customer, the partner kind of journey, looking at the data that's happening within those and helping use that to validate what we should do next. In the end of 2022, we looked at what was our top engaged customer cohort doing and what were the patterns happening there, use that to inform our goals for what's next, and use that to improve our pricing model and business model going forward. So I've gotten a lot deeper into the data and insight side of things so that I can inform business decisions based off of that.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned prioritization being something that's extremely at top of your mind. I always like to ask this question. I think it's kind of fun, but what's something that you spend too much time on that you would like to spend less? And what's something that you spend little time on that you would like to allocate more to?
Interesting. I used to spend too much time on meetings. But I went on a bit of a mission to cut that down, and I've achieved that to have a lot more heads down focus time. Today, I think I spend too much time on man reporting and finance processes. So I'm sure a lot of other early stage founders out there feel my pain in that too. But just the heavy lifting for everything for invoices, payments, revenue and expense reporting, making sure that aligns with our CFO and that our reports are clean and match up to what's actually happening. I spend too much time on that stuff. It's important stuff because it helps guide what's next and helps show what sort of track you're on with the business. But I would love to automate a lot more of that. And something that I love doing, but I don't get to spend enough time on are things like this. I really enjoy speaking, doing webinars, going to events, speaking on podcasts, and writing about what I'm learning from our customers in the space. And I'd love to have some more time to be able to do that, to just really share the behind the scenes and share tips that'd be helpful to folks who are looking at this challenge of hybrid, remote, distributed team engagement. Actually, we have a lot of learnings there.
Love that. And I always like to ask this next question because I love the information that founders extract out of anything that they ingest. Whether it's early in your career or now, what books or people have influenced you the most?
Good question. One book that I love, and I like taking inspiration, not necessarily from my industry. So one book that I love is one called Get Together. I think it's published on Stripe Press. And the folks that wrote that, I think originally worked in tech, but what they did is study what makes a great community. And not community as in the corporate world, but, a knitting club or a baking club or an environmental climate action group. So they really went deep in studying communities across the States and kind of pulled together this book on the blueprint for building a really meaningful, sustainable community. And I've taken a lot of inspiration and learning from that into building Wavy because it's super applicable. So I'd really recommend that book for anyone who's interested in the topic. And they're one of the only books I've seen that have a trailer on their website. So you should check it out. It's a really inspirational one.
And in regards to, I always like to ask to make sure we didn't miss anything and kind of just before we wrap up the show here, is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have or that you would have liked for me to ask?
Not that I can think of. We covered some good things, but if you're listening and interested in the subject and want to jam more, I'm always happy to talk. So happy to share my LinkedIn and connect with whoever's interested in the space.
Yeah. Last little bit, as we always ask our guests, please give us your plug. What's your LinkedIn? Where can we also look at Wavy, support you as a founder, support Wavy as a product? And if we're a company wanting to get involved, where can we start getting involved?
Yeah. So all over social media and our website, we're Join Wavy. And hopefully you can share the spelling for that in the show notes, but it's as it sounds. And Wavy's free to use. So you can just head to joinwavy.com and click Get Started to create your company dashboard and get started. So would love to see that. And we're always here to support and help with questions if you're looking for inspiration. And then I'm Shawn Hewat on LinkedIn and Twitter. So always happy to chat there. And it's really me behind the DMs and messages. So if you've got any questions or want to learn more, I'm here to chat with you.
Amazing. Shawn, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you, not only learning about your experience, but also Wavy and how really it's changing the dynamics about engaging with your company culture and keeping people involved. And really, honestly, from an employee standpoint, it's really changing our experience and our motivation to do things and be more engaged with our company. So overall, excited to see what comes about it and what other things that you've created around. I hope you enjoyed your conversation today on Behind Company Lines, and thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you.